Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Magnus Carlsen, the favorite, the world number one, the one that everyone expected to win the tournament. But this time, not quite. The Grenke Chess Festival 2026 held in Germany, which is a tournament that contains a lot of groups. There's the Freestyle Open, and then the Chess Open, and also the Amateurs. Now, one name rose above the rest in the freestyle. Vincent Keymer. The young German grandmaster delivered a truly elite performance when he is playing in the Grenke Chess Festival freestyle chess. He started the tournament with an incredible 6 out of 6, building unstoppable momentum from the very beginning. And in the later 3 games, he played extremely calm, drew all of them, and at the very end had 7.5 out of 9. And also for MVL, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who also had 7.5 out of 9. But unfortunately, Vincent was a bit luckier and he had the higher tiebreak, and in the end is the champion of the Grenke Chess Festival freestyle chess. Now, even under pressure in the final rounds for Vincent, he held his ground with confidence and precision, finishing tied for first and clinching the title on tiebreaks, as I've said. This wasn't pure luck. Of course, he was a bit lucky, but most of it was control, preparation. Well, preparation actually doesn't stand that much because this is freestyle chess and there's no openings considered, and pure strength. I think it's the most important thing. So Keymer is no longer just the next generation. He is actually already pretty famous in the chess world, but he is already competing at the very top, as you can see here, the results, and already winning a lot of events. Now, what about Magnus? We can see Magnus, the very familiar name, is in 3rd place. I mean, he didn't win the tournament as a lot of people has expected, but let's be clear, he remained undefeated throughout the event. That is also pretty impressive, even without lifting the trophy, only with a bronze medal. Carlsen once again proved why he is still one of the most dominant forces in chess, why he is still world number one. He stayed close to the leaders until the very end. He got one extra draw compared to the others, but this time he simply couldn't overtake them. And that's what makes this result so interesting. Vincent is in 1st place. As you can see, there are 2 who are 7.5 out of 9. Because for years, events like this felt almost inevitable. Magnus is always 1st place. Except for a few, including this one. Players like Keymer are changing that narrative. A new generation is rising, of course, and they're not just challenging the king, the greatest of all time, they're starting to take titles. And today we're going to be taking a look at this game, which I think, it's not like the best game of this whole tournament, of course, but it is played between 2 players who are all extremely young. We have Niemann from the United States, very strong, and we have Vincent, the final champion of the Grenke Chess Festival. So without further ado, let's jump into this game. This is Fischer random chess, as I've said, and all of the back rank pieces are placed randomly, so there are definitely no openings considered. Like here, the game starts with c4, but is this the English opening? No, of course it's not, because you have the rook right behind it. But this is like how it goes. This is very crazy ideas, and openings doesn't mean much here. It's more about the understanding of positions. And Vincent here replies with c5, playing the exact same thing, g3 and g6. Like copying each other, this happens a lot in not only standard chess, but also in chess 960. It happens a lot. Knight c3, knight c6, b3, b6, short castle. This is also a very interesting part of Fischer random chess. The way you do the castling is actually completely different than how you do it in classical or standard chess. And here Vincent also goes short castle, knight c2, knight c7, and here e3. So Hans is actually determined to go d4 to take control of the center. And here Vincent plays e5. knight d5 was played. So e5 actually does a little bit to prevent white from pushing d4, just a little bit actually. But it creates this outpost for this knight on c3, which Hans takes it and jumps this knight onto d5. We have d6 supporting the center, and here Hans decides that he should not wait no more, and he plays d4. So creating a lot of chaos in the center of the board. And now the question for black is, should he just wait and see what white does, or should black actually decide how to take on d4, whether to take with the e pawn or to take with the c pawn? And in the game here, taking with a c pawn, unfortunately, it is doable. And after e takes d5, knight takes, let's say bishop takes, and then there's a big exchange done in the center. Let's say here, also for the white pieces, you could take on d4, but after takes, I think in my opinion, after this whole exchange, everything, black is slightly better. But actually after takes, oops, it's not like this. Takes first, takes, after takes, instead of taking back on d4, white could play something like bishop g2. But again, this position is quite equalized no matter how both sides play, because you're just exchanging too much pieces. But in the game, however, Vincent decides to go for the more accurate move with the e takes d4. And after e takes d4, the better move would be to take on c7 first, and after queen a c7, and then take him back on d4. Because after takes, now there's no longer any knight d5 ideas, which is possible. And then black needs to take this way, takes. Well, you could also take this one first. And in this position, I think white did decide who is slightly better to play with, because this pawn on d6 is a weak pawn, and white will be focusing on doubling on the d file to attack the d6 pawn and everything. But for black, it is of course possible to defend it, and with accurate moves, this should be in a very easy draw. So in the game, however, e takes d4 was played, and now there's knight e6, which is a very important move here, because if you play knight takes d5, which is also possible, I mean anything here looks fine. And after c takes d4, rook e1, queen d7 or something, it's just quite equalized again. But knight e6, this is like showing why e takes d4 for white is not as good as knight takes c7. Because after you take first, you give black the chance to actually reject this trade and play knight e6, leaving this knight on d5 completely not doing anything and blockading its own bishop. So after knight e6 right now putting pressure on the d4 pawn, white basically needs to take on c5. And here bishop, well, d takes c5 was played first, but you could also play bishop a1 first. D takes c5, rook e1, bishop takes, rook takes. There are a lot of trades being played here, but here king g7 was played. Again, this is a very precise move in my opinion. I mean, because these dark squares are actually a little bit weak in black's territory. And if black were to play something like, let's say, knight d4, then after takes, let's say if he takes, bishop takes, this position, in my opinion, white is slightly easier to play with, because this bishop is always eyeing this f7 pawn and everything. Whereas this d4 knight looks a bit scary, but actually doesn't really attack anything. And sometimes, even if a piece is on an outpost, especially for knights, if it's not attacking anything, then sometimes it is not even considered as a good piece. It just looks scary, but it doesn't do anything. So that is the fact. And here, rook takes a1 and king g7 was played. So first of all, preventing any knight f6 checks that might be possible and freeing this queen. Maybe it could go to d7 to double up on the d file. So there are a lot of flexible ideas here for black. Queen d3 was played and knight d4. Finally, this idea coming up, and after knight takes d4, rook e3. So for white, Hans is basically trying to double up on the e file and everything. But again, this position I could say is quite equalized because so many trades has been done and the pawn structure is completely like the same. And usually in these type of positions, this is pretty drawish, as I could say. And here, rook e3 was played, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5. You see, we have reached this position, but at least this king is no longer under this very annoying pin by the d5 bishop. And the king has to come here anyway. So king g7 that has been played here shows that this is a really good option. And after bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, here Vincent plays rook e8. Now, I'm not going to say that Vincent has played a lot of great moves. Of course, he did, with a lot of accurate moves, a lot of great concepts. But for Hans, he is also not really playing any huge mistakes. He is also playing pretty fine. But here, with still 36 minutes left on the clock, sometimes, when you're with the black pieces here, for example, if you're playing with the black pieces, as in Vincent's point of view here, like when you're playing with the black pieces like Vincent, sometimes you just wish that your opponent make a blunder, just very easy tactic, miss something very easy. It's very rare to happen, especially when your opponent is even one of the strongest grandmasters in the United States. You know that these type of blunders won't happen. And you know that if you're with the black pieces, you know that this is just most likely going to be a draw because my opponent won't do anything stupid, and I will make sure that I don't do anything stupid, and this is so balanced. It's going to end in a draw. That is what most likely Vincent has thought about. But here instead, Hans, he played this move, rook e1, which is given a double question mark. You see the position has been going so calm, so normal. The eval bar is always in the middle, not leaning towards any sides. But suddenly this move was played. Hans still has 36 minutes left on the clock. And he spent only a couple of seconds, I could say, on this move. Rook e1. This is missing a 1-point tactic or something. Or maybe 2-point. But Hans, he should be thinking here for quite a bit. And I think after taking on e8, queen takes e8, king f1, queen e7 or something, then rook e1, this makes more sense and there's no tactics. But if you play rook e1 immediately, did you see the tactic? Well, here black can actually just play this really pretty move, knight f3 check. And suddenly, white just realizes that he is losing a piece. Because if you take with this rook, of course, you lose this e1 rook, which is what happened in the game. But if you take with a bishop, let's see what happens. You actually also loses a piece after this. King goes up. And I think this will be even more faster for white to lose, with these two rooks already able to double down to line up, and it is already quite hopeless. Maybe white have some chances, but rook takes f3 is definitely a better try than bishop takes f3. And after rook e1, king goes up, and I think white's only compensation or only try is to try to get use of this d5 bishop, which is still on an excellent outpost, and try to put some pressure on the f7 pawn. Although Vincent is not going to allow anything like that to happen, and he plays f6. And now white doesn't really have any great counterplay. Queen c3 attacking this rook. Rook just goes back to e5 and also blockades this diagonal, preventing any tactics. Rook d3, queen goes here, a4, and rook d8. Rook goes back. There are a lot of moves that is done here, but black is just slowly improving his position. At the same time, white can't really do anything but wait. Queen e2, queen goes up. But actually, here the only best try is to get the queens off the board, although this is still quite hopeless. Rook e1 or something, let's say if you play, king g3, f5. And in the end, white won't be able to get into black's territory, and black is just going to slowly get his king up the board, create some passed pawns on the king side. And I'm going to play a couple of more moves. Let's say you give a check, h6, takes, and let's say rook e3. But you just play rook b8, let's say you go there, rook b1, the rook has to go back, I think, and after rook f8 or something, it's still not completely a clear win, but, for a super grandmaster like Vincent, he definitely knows how to win it. King, for example, let's say keeps on waiting, then the king just goes up, if you go there, g5, and this should just be winning because this rook cannot really go anywhere else because he'll just lose the b3 pawn. But that is already the best try that white can give, and instead in the game, Hans plays queen f4, desperately trying to keep the queens on the board, but that is the even faster losing path. And this allows queen f1, king goes to h2, rotates d5, and here basically white can't really take back either with a pawn or the rook. There is mate in 1 with queen h1, and here Hans plays queen d7 check, but the king simply just goes back to f8. The point is that here you can't really go to here. I mean, you could, but after a check you'll have to go back, and eventually you'll have to play this move king f8, and there's no longer any more available checks. Like if you give a check, the rook just goes back, and black is going to be up a full rook because the queen moves and you lose the d3 rook as well. So here after queen c7, Vincent plays this move, king f8, and here completely winning, Hans resigned because black is completely winning. Now this game, I'm not going to say that this is like a brilliant game or something because Hans, he simply made a very bad move that he missed knight f3 and then he blundered a piece. But I'm going to say that Vincent, he find each move each accurate response against Hans' slight inaccuracies, and this game he clearly deserved it because he didn't really give white any chances or a counterplay. Sometimes for us, even when we're having an advantage, we play a couple of mistakes or inaccuracies and give our opponent some counterplay, and sometimes we even get the tables turned, like even we lose in a completely winning game. But for Vincent, he just calmly and accurately, very precisely wins this game. And this was round number 6 that he played. Right now he is 6 out of 6. And then the later 3 games, he drew all of them, and which was enough for him to gain the title. Now this tournament, the Grenke Chess Festival, actually it has already ended for a couple of weeks, but I still find it quite instructive. And also because recently all my videos are about the candidates, and sometimes the other tournaments besides the candidates is also quite interesting and thrilling. So yeah, this tournament I also watched it and followed it besides the candidates, and hope you guys did as well. The next week and actually the upcoming month, I have quite a few very important tournaments, so I think I won't be able to update videos, or maybe I would, I don't know, but I'm just gonna inform you guys about it right now. But right now, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed my recap of this game as well as this whole video. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!